Hey guys, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Lab Podcast. This is episode 33. So we are getting up there in age, which is also simultaneously awesome. But Kel, what's up? Oh wait, what are we talking about? You can say.
Starting off gold. All right, we're
Oh.
talking about alcohol this week and kind of quitting alcohol. But before we get to that, how was your week?
It was good. It was different. So I had like my first preventative screening colonoscopy on Tuesday. So I had, my first anal probing, and luckily I don't remember it, but I do remember the prep. So yeah, people are always like, "Why are you having a colonoscopy? You're so young." I'm like, "Yeah, thank you. No one says that." Um, I only have colonoscopies to feel young because everyone in there is definitely older than me, and everyone's always like, "You're so young," and I'm like, "Please keep it coming." No, just kidding. So my mom had colon cancer in her 40s, and that means I have to start getting colonoscopies in my 30s, just because prevention, because it runs in my family. So I guess, things could be growing in there up to 10 years previously, like polyps that could potentially turn into cancer. So they want you to catch it soon. If you have any polyps, they can just take them out, and then you never have to deal with the cancer part. So that's what I did. The prep for
So
the
fun.
colonoscopy is the worst, the absolute worst. So they have options now these days. So before, I think they just had like the option to drink a gallon of this really awful solution called Go Lightly, uh, and now they have a few different options, and one of them was tablets. So they give you tablets, you eat the tablets, and then you drink a shit ton of water with it. So it's almost the same concept, but you don't have to deal with the nasty taste. But apparently my insurance denied it, so I couldn't do the tablets for
Because you have the
whatever
worst
reason.
insurance.
I do. They're like, you are going to suffer, and I always suffer due to my insurance. So had to do the Golightly stuff, but the worst part was, so they tell you to start at like between 4 to 6 p.m. the day previously. You're not allowed to eat anything besides like clear liquids, Jello, black coffee, that kind of thing. So I start the first, and you drink 8 ounces of the Go Lightly stuff every 10 to 15 minutes until you finish, the half gallon. And it's like I thought I was going to throw up multiple times because it tastes awful. It's only supposed to take you like 2 hours. I feel like it took me almost four because it was just like I was trying not to puke, and then you're running to the bathroom in between, and like every time you think you're done, you're just like, nope, gotta go. So that whole like 2 hour limit thing is not real. But then I had to set an alarm to wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning to do the second half. So I essentially slept like an hour and 45 minutes and then got up and drank the other half while I was watching My Giant Life on TLC because I went to school with one of the girls on that show.
Gosh.
So I was like, let's see what she's up to. But yeah, so it was filled with a lot of shitting and drinking nasty stuff and watching trashy reality TV. But luckily, they didn't find anything. I'm clear and I'm good for another 5 years, so I don't
That's
have to
good.
do that for another 5 years. So that was my week. Pretty shitty. How about
Think
yours?
how jacked you'll be in 5 years, though.
Oh yeah, they'll be like, you know what? We need a bigger scope.
Bring out the big probe. My week was all right. I am dealing with a lot of anxiety right now, with just life shit. But I think it should be slowing down soon. I actually am switching gyms, which is kind of exciting. So this will be my last week at my current gym, and then I'll be moving to the new gym, which I'm very excited about. And with that, I'm only working 1 day a week at the front desk, so I'll have a lot more like stability, and getting in a nice, better set routine. So I'm really excited about
Nice.
that. That'll happen not this week, but the following week. So that's very exciting.
Nice.
So that was cool. my anxiety should be getting better in short. Which is nice. We went up to Cleveland this weekend, and we had some fun there. But that's kind of it. Like, not too much new going on. We do have some nice new microphones for all of our wonderful listeners,
We
though.
do.
So
Yes.
that's very exciting.
Yeah. I
But
wonder
yeah,
if
that's kinda where
anyone
I'm
will
at.
care.
We should be sounding crystal clear, like we're just whispering in their ears.
Yeah, this is some ASMR shit. So, hope you're feeling relaxed and ready to listen.
Yeah. But that's kind of where I'm at. Nothing too exciting. But yeah, just
Well, I
chugging
think
along.
that's
just
exciting.
chugging.
Changing gyms, like that's always kind of a big deal. It would be a big deal for me because I'm such a creature of habit. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
and I got a new bike finally. I'm very excited about that. Picked up a new
Nice.
bike this weekend, so I'll be back to bike commuting. So stoked
Yeah,
on
make
that.
sure you lock that shit
I
up
got
good.
I'm getting a better lock this time, so we'll
Good, good.
not end up in the same spot. But that's about it. But so but with all this anxiety, I have not drank. So let's segue into our topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you ever a big drinker, Cody?
Kind of. Well, no. I mean, like, I wasn't a big drinker, but I had my moment. I grew up in a religious bubble, so I literally didn't even drink on my 21st birthday. I don't think I took my first sip of alcohol till I was almost 22 or was 22. I'm not sure. And I drank it. I drank with my then ex for the first time, but I don't think I really started drinking more until I came out, but it served a couple of purposes, right? I think alcohol tends to be an escape, and I didn't think so at the time, but it was definitely an escape for me. Well, like one, the queer community, I feel like a lot of the social activities have to do with alcohol. There's the gay bars, that you go to meet people because it's not as easy. You want to be in your community, and usually that does involve
Absolutely.
bars and stuff. So that's when I kind of started drinking a little bit more. Believe it or not, that was also during more of my CrossFit days. CrossFit tends to encourage drinking,
Yeah, that's true.
beer specifically. So I think when I was I would say 26 would probably be my heaviest drinking days because it was kind of like the year where I was kind of discovering, I wasn't just gay, like I was trans, and I kind of thought I felt stuck. I didn't think it would ever be possible for me to transition because, like it was expensive. Insurance didn't cover anything at that point. I did finally, find a way to pay for my top surgery, but it felt really heavy. So there was a lot of moments that I'm not
Yeah.
very proud of. But once I started to transition, like the urge kind of really fell off. It was, kind of, uh, yeah, I don't know. I just didn't feel like I needed it anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, how about you?
Yeah, I was a really heavy drinker. So my like full disclosure, and this is kind of probably too TMI, but my dad was an alcoholic for most of my childhood. So like really heavy, really angry, really traumatic, and so I didn't drink at all until I was like 20 probably, and I was in college. I was really afraid of alcohol because I didn't know anybody who drank. In what is the word I'm looking for? And like a normal, like a healthy amount, like in moderation. I only ever knew people who like went full bore into it, right? And so I thought that's what you did, that's what people did, and I didn't trust it. So I didn't drink until I was like 20, and then I was in college, and I thought people could handle it easier. And anyway, so I started drinking around then, and then I like drank really heavily until I would say until I started bodybuilding. Probably actually, I for the same reasons. Like I've always been really socially awkward. I've always had a lot of like self-esteem issues. So like drinking helped me kind of uh, relax and talk to people because I people
Yeah,
were
same.
really scary for me.
Same.
So it helped me like actually have input as opposed to just like sitting there silently and listening.
Yeah,
Um, so I kind of used drinking as like a crutch essentially for a really long time. And
same.
now and then I stopped drinking, and I think I haven't drank in like 200 and some days now. Um,
Damn.
and I haven't felt better ever. I don't think. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
like,
great.
but it was a really hard battle for me to stop though, because I feel like so many of my friends knew me as like the person who partied hard and like had fun like and not remembered anything. Like I loved it. Like I was all about breweries. I was all about like I played on a beer league, like on several different beer league like sports teams, and so it was like really weird. I think for people and for my friends, and they're like, "Well, you can just have one or two," and I'm like, "But I can't. Like this was an issue for me," and
Yeah,
I'm guessing it's kind of like it's. I think a lot of people have issues and just aren't ready to face them,
yeah,
or aren't ready to, and that, I'm not throwing shade. Like I wasn't ready until I was ready. I think it hits different for everybody, and I don't think it necessarily has to be like a traumatic thing that does it for people, but I think sometimes it is, and sometimes it has to be. But yeah, I haven't really been happier, and I there's this book I should have looked up the oh, it's My Naked Mind. It's about alcohol and like giving up alcohol, and
yeah,
it helped me a lot when I was first doing it. But they have like a
that's great.
workbook and like challenges and stuff. But their big focus is you don't have to have a problem to want to stop drinking, um, which I think is what most people think is the only
Yeah,
reason you should stop drinking.
yeah,
um,
yeah,
but it can just be because you just don't feel great on it, or you don't actually need it in your
yeah,
life.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think honestly, in social situations, it's still like definitely is tempting to me because it does help, like when you are a socially anxious person, you almost dread the social interactions because you got that body tightness and you're like clenching your jaw, potentially getting the headache, and you're just kind of afraid of everything, or maybe that's just me. But then you get the alcohol in you, and that all that goes away. So like I feel like that's the hardest part for me is in social situations where I'm like really uncomfortable and I want to relax, but I can't. Um, so yeah, I like I guess now I just deal with those feelings, which is not very fun. Uh, but it's more fun than waking up like hungover the next day or feeling like shit or having it, impact my performance in the gym and stuff like that because it dehydrates the fuck out of you. You feel it for days, like multiple days afterwards. And I know it's different if you're younger,
yeah.
but it makes me feel pretty shitty. And I feel like that was probably the biggest motivator for me to be like, nah, it's just not worth it anymore. But
Yeah, and I think after I stopped, I realized a lot of the issues I had surrounding it and kind of like how much of it I was using it as a crutch because like I was never one person who could have like a beer with dinner. I was like, if I'm gonna start drinking, it's gonna go down fast. And it's gonna get ahead of me way too quickly, and I'm gonna be like blacked out by the time we leave the first bar. Like I was not a healthy drinker by any means, but like I also surrounded myself with a lot of people who drank the same way, or like I think I also have a what is it called when you have to have something to do with your hands, like that smokers have a lot.
oh, it's like some sort of fixation.
Yeah, it's like
There's
I don't know. I
well,
have
there's
to.
oral fixations, but then there's
I don't
fidgeting
know.
with your hands.
I do
Yeah.
it with my hands. So like if I have like a beverage, I'm just chugging it, and I don't know. I it's how I live my life. I don't know, but like it can be anything, and I'll chug it. And so like not on purpose, but it's just like something I do just because I have to have something. Like right now, I'm playing with this, so I can.
Yeah. I have this little twist tie I've been playing with.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's the kind of drinker I was, but yeah, but now I use weed a lot to help with the same issue, which I guess is probably not much better, but you don't get any of the shitty side effects, so that's nice.
Yeah, I guess that is kind of one thing to um, let people know, I guess, because it's like I feel bad if I'm, it's there's someone's like, oh, well, you've switched from one thing to another, but I feel as though it's just different in that it doesn't even give you like the same effect. I mean, it helps calm the social anxiety for sure, but yeah, it doesn't impact your body in the same way where you're gonna feel awful the next day. You also tend to not really do incredibly stupid shit. You might say something stupid, but you won't like physically do something stupid if you're high because you're just like
No.
glued to your chair probably.
Well, and to be completely honest, the amount that I take if I'm so Maddie always makes fun of me because I have like I use these gummies typically, and like I have like I divide them in fours, and so like to sleep like I take half, but if I want to go and be social but not create like dumbed out, like still be able to hold a conversation, I take a quarter. So that just like brings my anxiety down so I can like be myself, which
Yeah,
sounds terrible, but like that's what I need when I'm out,
yeah,
especially if I'm out with people I don't know well.
yeah.
Um, that's what I have
I
to do, and
I
it
do the same
it
thing.
is perfect. It's
Yeah.
like I have it down to a science. I'm like, this is how much I need to be just me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like that's exactly what I do, pretty much to a T. So,
Yeah,
or I have these gummies that are a mix of Delta 10 and Delta 8. So you have like a little bit of an upper, so you're not going to be sleepy, but it just calms your anxiety. And you don't even necessarily, you don't feel high, you just feel relaxed. So you're able
exactly.
to actually remember conversations and have conversations. It's not like you're not like impaired to the point where you feel high and you're just like, "Eh, whatever." It's just literally for the anxiety. You feel normal. You
Yeah.
feel like a normal human,
Yeah.
basically. And I know that still sounds like a crutch, but I don't know what to tell other people with social anxiety. You got to do what you got to do sometimes. I feel like, and I've been in therapy for like 10 fucking years for it, and although it's gotten better, you know, it it never goes away. So sometimes, like, what's the difference between popping a Xanax and taking a quarter of a
Exactly. It's the
gummy?
same
I
thing.
don't know. Yeah, and they won't even prescribe Xanax anymore, so you might as well just self-medicate how you can. I've actually never taken Xanax. I don't know. So,
I don't know. It works out, I think, perfect. And usually, if I do my gummy trick and then have a little bit of caffeine, I'm like golden, and like
mhm.
it works for me, and I
Yeah,
don't have any deleterious effects that I would
yeah,
from alcohol. And
yeah,
yeah, so that's kind of like my take on alcohol. I think now we can probably like kind of transition over to like what we want to do to help people get like off alcohol if they're curious or like I heard something that the other day that was like, "Are you sober curious?" And I'm like, "Good God, do we really need to say it like that?" Like, ugh, makes me cringe.
well, that's why they say like there's also California sober, so like you
That's what I
don't do
call
anything
myself.
but yeah, nothing but weed. So that's me as well.
Yep.
But yeah. Plus, I don't know. I feel like yeah, I don't know. I guess there's still this weird. I feel a little self conscious about having switched from one thing to another, but uh, it really is the less destructive one of the two, and it's not something that I do in like a binge kind of way. It's literally just to make me feel normal.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we're switching out like alcohol is a legitimate poison, like, and it's like
It's true.
you don't really need an excuse to stop. You don't need an excuse to like step away. You don't, and everybody makes you feel like you do, but you don't really owe an explanation to anybody. But I also had to have that conversation with a lot of people. Like, so many people wonder why you're not drinking, and I hated that question so much, and I got so sick of answering it. So I like came out like I do a system that I do. So like, I one either don't have to tell people, or like you people don't actually care what you're doing. They only care if you're judging them, and it's like the same thing that like when people find out you're a personal trainer, they're like, "Oh, don't look at me," and it's like, I don't give a fuck. You're not paying me. I don't care what you're
Yeah.
doing with your life, to be honest. So like, that sounded rude. We care about people, but like, we're not gonna judge people for whatever they're doing. Like, this is your life. Live it the way you want, but like also understand that not everybody's gonna live it the same way as you.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, in the same way, so like when you change how you eat too, it's almost like getting sober because people will be like, "Oh, let's go get McDonald's or eat like let's order
Pizza.
a pizza." And if you're, you know, say you really just want to stay on track, maybe you already had like a large cheat meal the day before and you're like, I don't want to do that again. Sometimes you have to say no or bring food with you or get a healthier choice, and people kind of expect the same explanation from you. Or they're like, why not? Why don't you just eat pizza? And it's almost the same thing in that people, they want you to join in. It's like this camaraderie, you know, and it's probably not as fun if someone is doing their own thing, and I understand that. Uh, but it just takes it's you have to learn how to set the boundaries if it's something you really want. Like if you don't actually want to stop drinking, then you don't have to. Like that's your choice. But if you do actually want to stop, it will take some effort. It will take some effort working with other people. Whether you give them an explanation or you don't, it's going to take some energy to say no. It's going to take some energy to either explain or say no to an explanation. And it's going to be a little awkward. So,
Well, and it's like the same idea of when you're trying to change anything, right? You want to always go about it with a plan, even though it sounds so goofy. Like I want to cut back on drinking because it doesn't make me feel as good. Cool, but you also have to have a plan, and you have to, and like it's gonna take effort. Like just like any other habit change, it's something that you have to work at and like put thought into. Otherwise, you're gonna. My favorite thing is either you plan ahead so you don't fail, or you're planning to fail. Period.
yeah,
Like you just have to have uh, something prepared.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, so when it comes to alcohol, and like, what would you say was your first step? Like, how did your process go?
So my process, like my first step personally, was cutting back on the days. So like, because my dad's an alcoholic, I've always been someone who it was a hard rule that I would never drink alone. Um, so that was my first rule, and that was from when I was young. Um, so that was my first step: never drink alone. Second step for me was to limit it to a day. And just like everything, you want to go about this as in like a step form. You don't want to just like cold turkey is okay if you can do that. Like, but if if you don't have a ton of support, I don't think it normally works personally. Um, and so I went stepwise. So I did first is never drinking alone. Second was I limited it to 1 day a week. So I would usually do it with my treat meal or whatever. Um, and then I kind of started switching out. So like, um, I'm sorry if I'm getting ahead of this, but of your
You're good.
question. But and then I started switching things out. So I was always a beer person. I was never a liquor person. Well, not really. So I would switch out either for a non-alcoholic beer. So this was not planned. Um, but I have this koozie, and it's for Athletic Brewing, which is actually a really cool non-alcoholic craft brewery. They make really good beer, or non-alcoholic beer, and that's actually became really, really common at bars and restaurants to have non-alcoholic beer. So I switched to that, or like everybody, I always point out is I have the ginger beer, my ginger beer, and like LaCroix and stuff. So I switched it out and just put it in a koozie. No one cared, no one noticed. So that was like my, and that's kind of what I do still. If I go to parties, I either bring non-alcoholic beer or some other canned beverage. Excuse me, canned beverage.
Cool. Nice.
So
What would
that,
you say, like, how do you handle like social situations moving forward? Like, how do you meet people, or
mm,
how do you deal with going to bars and stuff still if you do have friends that's the way they like to hang out? Like, do you still go and just kind of bring your own beverage, or did you have to create a new circle of friends that have common interests, so you kind of don't really even have that, you don't put yourself in that situation at all? Yeah, how does that work?
yeah. So like for me, mine was kind of like twofold. Um, First off, I think the friends that I really actually had in common, like that were really friends, um, they wanted what was best for me. So once I like made the decision, they're like, okay, cool. And we would either do other things or we would go to like if I was going to a bar, it was usually for a different reason. Like it was like a game bar, like that had board games, and that's what we were going there to do. Or we were going to eat, and it was like a treat meal, or we would go somewhere else or do something else, and that was fine, and it was like kind of no big deal. Um, the second half of Friends, I like if and I don't know, and it sounds harsh, but it's like did not have my best intentions at uh, the top of mind or something. Words are hard for me. I don't know, but
They
the
didn't
ones
have your
that were
best
really
intentions
the
in mind,
best
or your best,
intentions,
yeah,
whatever. But like
interest. Sorry.
and once I kind of like thought about it all, it was like I don't really have shit in common with these people. The only thing we had in common was we both like to get fucked up on the weekends. And it's like we can't hold conversations. We have nothing in common. They kind of drive me crazy. Why am I hanging out with these people? And so maybe now I just see them a lot less. Or
Yeah.
and like so every once in a while I'll see them and I bring things and they still cannot remember. Or like this is I obviously won't say a name, but like I had seen them and I hadn't been drinking for a long time by then, like at least a couple months. And I was at a house party and I was leaving and I like gave them a hug goodbye and they're like, "Are you driving? You've been drinking all." They're like, "Are you okay to drive?" And I'm like, "Dude, I haven't been drinking." And like they had no idea. And I'm like, "Okay, we aren't really friends." So I don't know why we're pretending anymore. So that's kind of how I went about it. Did you have to deal with any of that kind of shit?
um, well, I wouldn't say. I mean, kind of, but not really. So it's like the people that I did used to drink the most with. Yeah, we actually aren't friends anymore. So maybe, but I don't think it was like just that. But like maybe a lot bit. But yeah. So I don't know. I think that's always the thing that when people they get caught up in being like, well, what do I do with these friends? Where usually what we do is we drink, and that's what we've known. Like that's just what we do together. Like people get afraid to lose those friends, and it's just kind of like, why? Like, what role do they play in your life?
Mm-hmm.
What do they contribute to your life besides like a fun drunken night out? Because if there isn't anything else that they are, contributing to your life, then it might be okay, or it might be time to actually let that go. Because there's so many other people out there that you could be making a real connection with that doesn't involve drinking. And I know it's hard, especially if you've like known someone for years, uh, to just think, oh yeah, I'm okay with throwing this relationship down the toilet. I'm not saying that that is absolutely going to happen every single time, but I feel like that is something that you might have to start to prepare yourself for, because if you don't have anything else in common, truly, you know, that's kind of a sign.
Right. Well, and so my mom said this thing to me a long time ago when I was in high school, and it never really made sense to me until I kind of like grew up a little bit. But she's like, some people are in your life for seasons, and she's like, and that's okay, because like you needed them really bad when they were there, and like so. Like when we were younger and we were first starting to find the scene and everything, it gave us camaraderie. It gave us something to do and like to figure it the fuck out on our own, like and to be completely honest, like drinking gave me like I came out as a trans person when I was drunk off my ass, to my friends, and I'm like, because I would have never had the balls to say it, but once I said it when I was drunk, I'm like, well, you can't put the cat back in the bag, kind of thing. So it was like, guess I'm doing this, and so like I'm not saying that drinking had its place, but it did for me, and it like took away the anxiety before I knew how to do it, and I think sometimes friends like play a role, but they don't have to be in your life forever. You can honor that relationship and have good memories, and it doesn't have to be something that's sad.
No.
It can be like a fizzle out kind of thing, and people
Yeah.
grow and change all the time. Like your path isn't always going to line up the same as everybody else.
Right.
Um, and I would also say that like interests change. Like so like I wasn't into bodybuilding forever. And when I was, like, your friends changed. Like Cody and I became really close when I was started bodybuilding, and now I have fitness friends, or and like
Yeah.
before, and I don't have to have drinking friends all the time. And like you can also like go into your other interests. Like maybe you're not going to the bar, but you're gonna start doing a board game thing. Like there's all kinds of like meetups at stuff, and that they go to like coffee shops and do board games together. And you can always find different groups. It's kind of just explore your interests in different ways,
Yeah.
and see what you're actually interested in. 'Cause
Yeah.
might not be beer. Like,
Yeah.
what kind of conversations are you having with these friends? Like, can you remember them? Are they something? Are they deep? Like, or are they like talking about old drinking times? Because like when I stopped drinking and was still hanging out with drinking friends, all we did was talk about times that we were shit faced at other times. Like I don't know, like we weren't talking about anything. We were talking about being shit faced and like how stupid we were. And it's like
Yeah.
we have to have something better to talk about, right?
Right. Yeah. And like that's another thing too, is sometimes, if they are good enough friends, sometimes they can follow you into the other interests that you discover outside of drinking. So like just because you stop, maybe there's a mutual thing, like maybe your group of friends also wants to stop drinking. It's a rare occurrence, but like say it happens, and you guys can kind of explore your relationships and yourselves at the same time, try to figure out what works for you guys or what is fun for you guys to go do besides go to a bar or whatever. So like it doesn't have to be this lonely endeavor where you're like, okay, I need to cut all of my friends out of my life because I don't
Yeah.
want to drink anymore. Maybe they don't want to drink either. That's just it's been the norm for so long. That's how you have hung out. That's been your dynamic, but dynamic doesn't always have to stay the same. And I think one thing for me that still clicks in my brain at the time when I was, I wouldn't say like I wouldn't by any means say I was drinking heavily, but I was definitely drinking to the point of drunk every weekend. So I think it was the CrossFit era. I was doing CrossFit, and the coach at the time, he used to kind of drink with us, but then he kind of went through a sober phase. I don't know if he's still in it, but He said if you have to get drunk every weekend, he was just like, I don't care what you think, you are running from something. There's something you are needing to escape from. And at the time, I was like, whatever, just having fun because I haven't ever in my life because I grew up in a religious bubble, so I'm just having fun. And then looking back, I was just like, he was totally right. Like I was trying to escape from my goddamn body.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, I'm trans and I can't do anything, so let's get fucked up. But yeah.
Well, and it also like some friends, like when you tell them you don't want to drink anymore, and like they'll be like, okay, cool. What do you want to do instead? Do you want to get into coffee? Like I have a friend who's a bartender, who's been like we used to really bond over different craft beers, and she works at like a really high end brewery. So we used to talk about that shit all the time. And then when I got sober, she got really into like making mocktails for me, and like it's silly and it's just juice. But I'm like, you know what? You're trying to support me, and you're trying to like blend the two of like what we used to like bond over together. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
really cute, and that's a lot of effort.
Yeah.
And like, I'm like, I'm totally here for it. Let's do it. And like,
That's
so
awesome.
your friends can be like surprising too. Like, um, just talk to people who, if they love you, they'll change the way they talk about it, and
Yeah.
if they don't, maybe you need to re-examine that situation.
Yeah, because I think there's something to be said. Uh, if you tell someone that you don't want to drink anymore and they try to convince you to change their mind, that's a red flag. Like that means they're only thinking of themselves, not about the choice that you are wanting to make. So it's kind of like, do you really want to be friends with someone who is actually that selfish to begin with? And yeah.
And to be honest, it's becoming, I feel like, really common now, because I think everybody, and I don't know if it was a generational thing, but like I think millennials were really into getting fucked up, and now I feel like we're all getting older, and we're like, oh, this doesn't feel good anymore. And so Columbus just opened, probably what, 2 years ago, maybe a year ago. It's the first sober bar of Columbus, so it's like an entire bar that does all the bar things like trivia nights, drag shows, everything, game nights, comedy nights, open mic nights. But it's
That's
a
awesome.
sober bar. All they have is non-alcoholic beer and mocktails, and it's pretty cool. It's called
That's
the
cool.
Dry Bar. But yeah, so
That's awesome. I like
I
it.
think it's a thing. Like, and there's a ton of different craft brew or craft non-alcoholic beer. It's not just like O'Doul's anymore. And it can be fun trying those out. If you're on a health and like you're doing macros, just make sure you pay attention. But they typically have
Yeah.
very low macro counts.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Also, I think now that weed is being legalized more and
yeah.
more, uh, the millennials are kind of like, I'm too old for the drinking part because I feel like shit, but this stuff helps me sleep. It helps my achy joints. I don't do stupid shit,
Yeah.
you know?
It's a win-win-win for all.
Yeah, yeah. So,
As long as you're not getting drug tested at work, because that's what stopped me for so long.
yeah, you don't want that. But in the states that it is legal, like California, we're all good here.
Well,
But
Delta 8's I think legal everywhere.
yeah, I think except for maybe
Utah.
or Texas, I think either tried to make it illegal or they are in the process of it. I don't remember. Um, but I don't think it's legal actually because they had little vendors at Alphaland selling Delta 8 stuff, I
Oh.
believe. I don't know the legalities of it everywhere, but it some people want to,
Check your laws.
yeah. Check your laws. If you can buy it at a smoke shop, though, you're probably fine.
Yeah.
So,
But
yeah. Um, let's see. What else when it pertaining to quitting alcohol? Any
um,
major tips that you can think of?
well, I know I've mentioned this before, but my koozie thing. Always have a koozie with you. Just drink out of a can. No one knows. Um, you can also say it interacts with your medication that you're starting a new medication. If you really just don't want to get into it with someone, that's a really easy one. Um, there's always like support groups. If anybody's ever interested in those, I know there's like trans only support groups, AA, that kind of thing. If you have like a serious problem that you really can't find community in whatever area you're in, I know AA is so super popular. I used to go to Al-Anon, which was family members affected by alcoholics. And so that can be a really useful group if you don't want to do like the steps or anything like that. They are super religious typically, though, so watch out for that if it makes you uncomfortable. Um, those are good ones. And I think I know I posted on my personal Instagram the other day, but I don't know, probably a week ago. But just come up with different activities. Like have a list of stuff when you first like introduced it to your friend group of like other things that you can do. Like
Yeah.
because if especially if it's new and you've never talked about it with someone, just like have a list of other activities. Like go bowling, go to a board game bar, go to a coffee shop. You can always go outside if that's easier. With the holidays, it's getting usually that's a really big one, especially if
Yeah.
you're family drinks. So be prepared for that because it's gonna be stressful. At
Yeah.
least
Yeah.
it always was for me.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably a pretty big trigger for a lot of people, the holidays, because there is always alcohol around, or maybe you're stressed due to family stuff, and you're like, just want to take the edge off and all that. Um, just get weed. Just kidding. Just yeah, it's a little harder to navigate, but I feel like the same thing applies when people ask you, and um, if you just have nosy family members and you know that, maybe try to prepare and think of a few different options to tell people when they ask, if they ask, that sort of thing. And then one thing I was thinking about pertaining to alcohol and friends and things to do with friends is maybe write out or think about what your ideal hangout session would look like with friends that doesn't involve alcohol. Um, just so you can kind of like picture what that might entail, which might be kind of hard at first if it's something that you've only gone to bars to hang out with people. But maybe you have a game night at your house, or maybe you go to a coffee shop. I know you already said these things, but um, thinking of alternative preferable situations or what you want from relationships in the future. Maybe it won't happen with the same friend group, but like what do you want out of friends? Do you even want more like drinking buddies? Do you even want to be going to the bar and getting drunk? Or is it out of habit, or is it just, are you afraid of change or things that you don't know? Are you afraid you won't be able to have things in common with these people? So like if you take alcohol out of the equation, um, what do you want from that relationship?
Yeah, and then like, is it just because you have no better ideas? Like, is it just are you doing that because that's what you always do? And like, because I think people do get stuck in those ruts of like, I don't want to think about anything else. It's like that same decision fatigue that you get trying to make a choice about dinner every day, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I always just have a couple like lists, like a list of like go tos, and like one thing I used to do, especially when I was in prep, because Maddie and I started dating when I was in prep, so I wasn't drinking, I wasn't eating. It was very hard to come up with dates.
I bet. I bet.
So, because we actually had our first date the day before I started prep,
That's
for my
crazy.
show, and so like our entire relationship was like started then. Anyways, so I had to be very creative. So like usually you can look up on like whatever, and if you're in like a decently sized city, there's like guides to like either cheap ideas of stuff to do um or free things. Like I remember Google, there was this list that I found that was like cheapo Columbus or something, and it was like a list of like just different date ideas, and like you can use that same idea for friends. It doesn't have to be romantic, um, but it's a good way to kind of, if that's truly what your sticking point is, to kind of come up with other fun things to do.
Yeah, and without drinking, you are going to be saving some fucking money.
For real.
So I would say anytime that you go out and you don't put any money down towards alcohol, put that into savings and you can save it for doing something like fun, going somewhere with friends, or buying something you've always wanted or something along those lines. So as an extra motivator, but it's also like this tangible thing. Money always talks, right?
Yeah, well, and also you can like kind of see what, like your bank account wasn't a black hole. Like you were spending it somewhere, you know, and it's like
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's actually a really good idea, Cody. Just as another incentive. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Then you can, make it a goal. When I save X amount, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, or go wherever I want, whatever.
Well, and I was always like, I love streaks. So like in the Trainerize app, you get a streak if you like don't miss stuff and things like that. There's an app that I use called Nomo, like no more, like it's NOMO, and it
Perfect
keeps,
for November, right?
yeah, and it keeps your tally. So it's like, oh shit, I'm at 30 days already. I can't break this, and so that was always something that I was always. Helped me, especially at the beginning.
No, yeah, that's a good one.
So
It's a really good idea.
That was cool, and I think this Naked Mind also has like a workbook that you can kind of do, and it helps you examine your relationship with alcohol and kind of does more of that psychological digging that kind of like Cody was mentioning, like what are you running from, or like are you comfortable with alcohol? Their whole premise is like you're gonna give up alcohol by choice and you're gonna not even crave it or like want it again, and that was the whole like selling point of that book. But she also does a ton of podcasts, so if you're a podcast person, which you probably are if you're listening to this, I think her name's Annie Grace. Let me double check.
Maybe we should get her on the podcast, unlike some people we can't get on the podcast.
All right, Cody.
I had to. Sorry.
Yeah, you did. Grace, I think is what her name is. Yeah, it's Annie Grace. This Naked Mind for anybody who's interested in that.
Annie Grace. We should try to see if we can get her. Oh, doesn't hurt.
Hey, yeah, just throw an Instagram DM out there. And
Yeah, be like,
sometimes it
hey.
works.
It's funny though, because this month is called, it's November, and a lot of people are using it as November, like
Yeah, I
no
saw
to
that.
things, There's no nut November. There's just no drinking
No
in
shave.
November. Yeah, no shave November. So I guess this kind of falls in the right time zone, because
Yeah.
some of you might actually be in the process of trying to not consume alcohol, and it's the 6th, and it's almost been a week, and maybe you're struggling. But just, I guess, like fitness, I would say, remember your why.
Remember your why, and remember you don't have to be perfect from the get. Like no one's perfect. That's why like streaks are fun, but they're not the be all end all, right? You can't think about it as, well, I fucked up November, so I might as well just go on a couple benders. No, just try again. Like you're never gonna get it on the first time. So, I know a lot of people like to do dry January, sober October, those kinds of things, and I think they're a really good idea. But just don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Like ultimately, yeah, the people relapse and all that, and they got systems in place for that, because they know it's gonna happen, because people are human and we all do it. So don't go thinking you're broken forever and you're just gonna never be able to stop. So yeah.
Yeah. No time like the present.
Nope. Anything else you can think of that we didn't already touch on that might be helpful, or maybe not so helpful? I don't know.
I don't think I have anything else. I think, just remember, if you switch weed, munchies are a thing. So
It's
just
true.
be
Be
aware of
careful.
that.
Yeah.
But I think I'm ready for the power talk. If you don't have anything else,
I don't think I do, so let's hear it.
cool. So I have a quote from Carrie Fisher. So from Princess Leia herself. So the quote is, "Stay afraid, but do it anyway. What's important is the action. You don't have to wait to be confident. You just do it, and eventually the confidence will follow." And I think a lot of people with everything just are like, I just am too scared right now. I don't want to do it when I'm scared. I don't want to act out of fear, blah, 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 blah. And you're always going to be fucking scared. Like, I'm always scared, right? Like, I'm scared I'm going to fuck up. I'm scared I'm going to make a fool of myself. But, like, whatever. You just kind of have to bite the bullet and do it and just kind of get over yourself. Like, no one's going to notice. Or if they notice, it's going to be gone in a second because everybody fucks up. Everybody makes a fool of themselves sometimes. Everybody's a beginner until they're not. Like, right? You just kind of have to bite the bullet and do it. And eventually you kind of just like fake it till you make it and you learn how to do it. And I feel like the older I get, like this was not me before 30. Like I was terrified to do anything. I would just sit in the fear and like what I always call it armadilloing. So like when you snap into a ball and you just want to hold yourself in the ball, and it didn't serve me. And it's just like I can either stay like this and be scared all the time, or I can just do it and still be scared, but at least I tried. Because it's like,
Exactly. Yeah.
well, this path isn't doing it for you. You might as well try the other one. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's it. It was like, I remember this kind of how I've gone through my whole life is just like, well, I've learned that this isn't getting me where I want to go. I can either do this path still, even though I know it's not headed in the right direction, or I can switch directions and try something else. And it's terrifying, but like, you just kind of just have to be terrified and do it. And
Essentially.
and it sucks. So it's just understand that no one who's doing what they want to do or doing something and making it look easy they're not fearless. They're still scared. They're just doing it anyways. So that's kind of what I had today.
If you're not scared, it's probably a bad sign because it's not hard enough. It's not challenging enough for you. So I feel like being scared is way normal, and we just don't know it. So we think it's just us alone struggling with our fears. But it's very not true. Like, no one has their shit together. No one knows what they're doing. We're all just experimenting and making decisions, like hoping for the best. But yeah, that was a good one. It's like, it's okay to be scared. There's never a perfect time, and yeah, eventually you'll be looking back like, wow, I am so glad I took that leap. It was terrifying. Either, I failed and I learned from it, or I succeeded and thank God I did that,
Yeah. Just strip off the Band-Aid and do it scared.
Yes.
And you'll figure it out. Do it
scared.
scared.
That is our next t-shirt.
Yeah, we'll just get the big Nike swoosh and then it'll just say, do it. And then it'll just under real small. Scared. Follow us for more tips and tricks.
Follow us on how to get sued by a massive company. Man.
Well, we would have had an in, but they didn't show up. All right. Anyways, we'll talk to everybody next week. Have a good week, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.